Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dragon Talk. We will be recording for the next 3 hours here from this studio. I am Greg Tito, and I am joined by Mr. Chris Perkins.
Hello.
And Matt Cernett.
Howdy.
And they are here to talk about lore you should know, and we'll be jumping into that in a couple of minutes. We're going to talk about Sahuagin and Candlekeep, two things that have been referenced many, many times in Dungeons & Dragons, and we want to make sure you know what the skinny is on all of them. But they get to sit here while I go through some fun announcements of what's happening in Dungeons & Dragons world. We do this always when we start, just because it's the start of the week. We want to make sure everyone knows what's happening in our world, and you guys are here today. Yes, I am all beardy today, James. Yeah, I grew back my fall beard, and it'll be this way probably till...
You did that in 2 minutes.
It's very fast. You sneeze, and then my...
You call that a beard?
He was
This
fresh
is
shaven
a beard.
That's true.
He was fresh shaven when he walked in.
And then the announcements happened, and then the beard began to grow.
By the end of this 3 hours, you'll be Santa Claus.
That's Matt's. Matt's beard gets glorious.
Yeah, it's getting a bit woolly right now. Like, I don't know.
It's. I feel like it's grayer than the last incarnation.
It is.
Yeah.
Every time it comes back.
out of it yet?
That happens with me. Like, now that I'm here, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an extra year of gray hair.
So announcements.
We're all getting old and dying.
We're not going to talk about beards for the rest of this time. Lore you should know on dwarves' beards. Tomb of Annihilation is out. You should all pick it up. It has been out for since September 19th, and it is flying off the shelves. People love it. We are doing lots of wonderful things to support it. So thank you so much for watching all the stuff that we got here on this channel, as well as checking out in your home game. And I can't wait to hear more about people surviving or not surviving the Tomb of Annihilation. It's good stuff out there. You can pick it up in your local game store, which is always a great place in order to meet new players. If that's in your wheelhouse, Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League is all run through game stores as well as many other places. So go ahead and check that out. But again, your hub is always where you can purchase it. You can also get it on D&D Beyond, Roll20, Fantasy Grounds. You can all pick up Tomb of Annihilation within those digital realms as well. So if you play online with folks, that's a good way to jump in. And then D&D Beyond is great for character building and things like that. So you can have that at the table in addition to the pen and paper miniatures game that you might got going on.
The best thing I've seen about Tomb of Annihilation so far was on Twitter on the weekend, where somebody was sharing around their standard form that they hand to characters players after their characters die.
I saw that.
And you have to fill in all the pertinent information.
Yeah. It was like a Mad Libs letter of sorry, your character X died by strangulation, or yes, it was good stuff. I Dungeon Masters steal that because it's pretty cool. Also, rip up the character sheet when people die, right?
Yeah.
That's what I took away.
in their faces.
That's old school.
So Extra Life is coming up on November 3rd and 4th. The Dungeons & Dragons team will be, many of them will be heading to Gamehole Con in Madison, Wisconsin, including you, Mr. Perkins. You'll be there. And running a very fancy game on our stream. I'm calling it fancy. I'm not sure if it is going to be fancy. You better be dressed in black tie. With a whole bunch of other folks, including Rudy Rutenberg and Satine Phoenix, and it's going to be fantastic. They're throwing it off there on November 3rd. Mike Merles is going to be DMing that session. And then we're going to throw it to here. I'll be hosting from this location, as well as playing in a few games with Lauren Urban, as well as Sean Woods is also done dungeon mastering here. He's one of our concept artists. And then we'll be kicking it to Encounter Roleplay at Will Jones, and then back to Gamehole Con for the session that you are going to be running on Saturday night.
Right.
Lots of fun, great way. The whole reason we're doing this is to raise money for Seattle Children's Hospital, as well as a bunch of other children's hospitals around the country. And a way you can do that without even watching us, but you should watch us too, is to buy the Turtle package on DungeonMastersGuild.com. It has everything you need to play as a turtle, as a player character, as well as lore about turtles themselves and their location within the peninsula of Chult.
That is correct.
Yeah. So
and all proceeds from that go to Extra Life.
Yes, everything that Wizards would get from that is going towards Extra Life. And once we get to the next threshold, we'll definitely be previewing a lot more fun stuff from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which is coming out November 10th. So yeah, we have unlocked the 20K threshold on rewards. Those are available right now on the Dungeons & Dragons website, so check that out. And the next one that will be coming up is the list of new wizard spells from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and that's at 25K. I think my page has been at $240 I can buy $240 worth of pudding. And I need more people so I can get more pudding going on. Have you set up your page yet?
There is a page, but I haven't told anybody about it, so I think there's like 0 donations.
So Chris,
I'm on deadline.
I've got other things I got to do. So yeah, all the creators will be doing that very soon and getting that up there. But pay attention here, and then also ancillary to that, I'll be helping out with the Magic team is doing it on this next Friday. What is that? What is today? What date is that? It's this Friday. I'll be out from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. They're doing a Dungeons & Dragons game set in the world of Ixalan using the Plane Shift article that James...
Wyatt.
I was going to say Woods, and that would have been terribly wrong. James Wyatt has been putting together. So I'm not looking forward to waking up to be on stream at 6 a.m. Pacific time here, but I am looking forward to seeing the Magic team run through Dungeons & Dragons. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I will need all of the coffee, so send all of the coffee my way, as well as donations towards Extra Life, and we'll make it happen. As I said, Xanathar's Guide to Everything is coming out November 10th in Core Hobby in game stores. You can pick up the alt cover there with art from Hydro 74. It looks awesome. It's got like a yellow Art Deco kind of feel to it. If you're looking for it, Wizard Nathan B. Stewart just recently tweeted out pictures of it as well. I think we retweeted it from the official Wizards account if you want to check out the actual galleys of what the new alt cover looks like. It looks pretty amazing. It'll be out everywhere on November 21st. Loot Crate has got something really cool going on. So in this October box, it's Demon is the theme, and there's a D&D item in there. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is just now.
I know what it is.
But yes, we know what it is. It's pretty fancy.
I have one.
If you're a demon lover, and we know you all are, or is also devils. It's also devil and demon themed. So go check it out and order that if you're interested. And you might be able to play it with lots of different games. Mm-hmm. That's a good clue. Right? You can play lots of different games with this item. Wizkid's Beholder Trophy is out in stores now. We've had this in the office for a little while. It looks very similar to the Xanathar's face that is on the Monster Manual, the 5th edition Monster Manual. It is very cool, and it hangs, and it is in your face, essentially. It looks great. Go check it out at WizKids.
Still waiting for the Beholder Pinata.
Well, you could beat it up if you wanted to.
Expensive.
It's for a very select clientele who is into that. The LARPing of beating of the Beholder. It's good stuff. We have it in the office. We've been taking some pictures with it, but we'll take more over the course of the next weeks because it is frightening and amazing at the same time.
Fantastic.
There is a D&D coloring app. Did you guys know about this? In Google Play and on Apple App Stores, you can get the D&D coloring app, and it's free. There's different, you can purchase pages within it, but it's totally free. It's from Kings Road Publishing. They did the Dungeons & Dragons coloring book that came out last year, if I remember correctly.
If you have trouble staying in the lines, is this the app for you?
This is the app for you. Excellent. Exactly. You can do it all over the place, but it takes art from all of our books, and you can color on it to your heart's content. I'm going to give it to my kids so that they can have something to do while we're getting pho or something like that. But it looks like tons of fun. Check it out. It's on Google Play and the Apple App Stores. Tales from Candlekeep, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about Candlekeep today. But Tales from Candlekeep is coming out with a game on October 11th, this Wednesday, and it is Tomb of Annihilation, the board game. So Wizkids, our friend Wizkids, is making a physical board game that you can play that is the same system, the adventure system that Legend of Drizzt, Castle Ravenloft, Wrath of Ashardalon, they all use the exact same system, and a Tomb of Annihilation one is coming out. But Tales from Candlekeep is the digital version of that, and it's basically designed for single player play. You can go through all the same scenarios that you would, draw the tiles, use your character, have monsters attack against you as you would in a normal playthrough of that board game, but it's all kind of optimized for a single player playthrough. It's actually really hard. I was playing a bunch this weekend, and it is challenging tactically. So if that is your jam, is Dungeons & Dragons mechanics and trying to figure out what is the best way to do in any turn-based kind of tactical situation, pick up Tomb of Annihilation. It comes out on Steam on October 11th. It's good stuff. You can play, and there's 4 characters you can play in that, and that is one of them is Artist Simber, who we talked about a couple of times here on Laurie Should Know. Dragonbait, which we've definitely talked about. Birdsong and Ashara, who Birdsong is a Tabaxi, and I believe Ashara is a Aarakocra. So all races and/or characters we've talked about on Laurie Should Know are in that game. So good way to jump into the lore behind Dungeons & Dragons and Chult and Tomb of Annihilation in particular. Hand Cholo Jewelry has new pieces of jewelry out there. There's a Beholder one that is a pendant, and it looks quite menacing. There's also just the Dungeons & Dragons ampersand that is a piece of jewelry. Oh, God, I should bring those. I got to get Hillary to make sure and have those actual physical things in there. But they look awesome.
We can show them off.
That's right. Bling it up.
Yep.
Yeah. But there's a Claw of Tiamat and a 9 Lives Stealer Cuff. I'm not sure what that is.
That's
but it's
a sword.
Yeah, but it's a yeah, right, and then it goes around the wrist, so it doesn't quite go all the way together, but it's something you can wear on anything. And you can get it at handcholo.com, and it's under the officially licensed tab. There. As well, there's a Demogorgon jacket you can get from ThinkGeek. I've been wearing this. It's got black satin. It's kind of shiny, makes you kind of feel like I'm in the Cobra Kai dojo a little bit. But it's pretty awesome.
Does it have room for your second head?
Yes, it does. It just like sprouts out whenever I get angry. But you can check that out on thinkgeek.com as well. People have been asking about the snapback turtle hats. I wish they were turtle hats. I wish they were, but they're trucker hats that are like red, white, and blue stripes on it, as well as Dungeons & Dragons on the front. Good stuff. They do have the snapback kind of flat front thing going on there. So at your peril there. I think those are for younger heads than mine. But I do enjoy wearing them every once in a while. Ah! Things attacking me. So this is the D&D Adventure Grid. This is out now. It is a way to quickly bring stuff with you when you need to put your miniatures down. It's got nice thick cardboard on it, and there's the wilderness, and then the stone for interior work going on there. I wanted to just show this out there so that people could see it. It's like good, nice, thick cardboard, as well as new spell
card.
card.
For wet erase and dry erase.
It is, yeah, both erases.
Yep, all the erases.
It doesn't work with the rubber eraser. I've tried that. It doesn't work. But wet erase, yes, exactly. And so good thing to have in your backpack if you're a dungeon master to pull out. I know a lot of people use the roll up mats, but those can sometimes, if you have the bigger ones, it's hard to they bend and then they get and then if you don't erase it right away, it gets so this solves a lot of problems. So go check that out. That's in your game stores as well. There's I don't know if a lot of people know about this product, but Ultra Pro makes this. These are these folios, and you can open them up and put your character sheets in these pages, and then there's pages in the back that are optimized for cards, and they work really well with the new Gale Force 9 spell cards that are out there.
I haven't seen these ones yet.
Yeah, they're a new edition, cleaned up a lot of errata, as well as corrected some of the smaller problems that were there going on. So they're new. They're out in stores now. Wow. They work really well with this folio. If that's your jam, make it happen. Fun. All right. Anything else? There's so much else going on. Lost City is tonight. We have episode 11, Foursquare Lost City of Omu. I know a lot of folks have been really paying attention to that. We have a lot of exciting news coming from Foursquare very soon, but we might be having another fun live event like we did last year for the Lost episode. So we'll get more news coming on that, but follow along on the story now. They're on episode 11. They're getting even closer to that tomb, and it's gonna be crazy. So watch tonight's episode and continue to follow along each week. We might be doing more and more content, so some of the episodes are getting longer. I think next week's episode is going to be 50 minutes, and then for the ones that are shorter, we're going to be doing them back to back to make sure that you guys have probably at least an hour of content for each Foursquare kind of showing that we have going on. We've learned a lot and how we've edited that up, and we know people on the Twitch channel have been wanting more, so thank you for that. And speaking of the Twitch channel, you can of course subscribe. It's $4.99 here. And you will get access to awesome emotes as well as ad-free viewing, not to mention cool badges. So I see James Hake and Joe Hills here in the chat, as well as Lauren Obo Crazy has a badge for having 3 months of being a subscriber here on the Twitch channel. So thank you guys so much for being here and participating in the chat, and we love it. And I'm going to stop talking and let you guys talk, and we're going to record the Laurie Should Know for which one you guys want to do first? You wanna
Sahuagin.
Sahuagin?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're all repped and ready to go? All right, we're going to do that one first. Thanks, you guys. And I heard the click, so we're already recording, which is already very good. I'm going to take a sip of water first. Sorry, that was dramatic.
Hello, I'm your host. No, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Hello, and welcome to another segment of Lore You Should Know. My name is Greg Tito, and I am joined by...
Chris Perkins.
And...
Matt Cernit.
And these lore masters will school me on little bits of Dungeons & Dragons and Forgotten's Realms lore that you can use in your game. And today, we're going to talk about Sahuagin, which until recently, until Matt Mercer and Marisha Ray did their pronunciations on D&D Beyond, I called Sahuagin.
There's a reason for that.
Why is that?
Well, so in addition to it just being a weird word that people would pronounce any way they wanted to, in I think like 2008 or something like that, there was an article online on the Wizards website that it was frequently asked questions, an FAQ, and one of them was pronunciations. And one of the things that it says is to pronounce it a Sahuagin. However, that's a specious pronunciation list because it also says to pronounce ayus as yous and eas. So, no.
So we're retconning it to Sahuagin, which is much more fun to say, honestly.
Yes.
And of course, we're talking about the fish folk.
Yes, also known as the sea devils. They are fishy humanoids who live in the deep oceans and occasionally wander into the shores to make off with people in the night and drag them back down into the deep.
Ugh.
Yeah, they appear in the first Monster Manual and the original Monster Manual, and there's an awesome line in there, which it's the second line of their description. It just says, "The legends about and history of these monsters will be dealt with later."
Which we're doing right now.
It's actually a true statement because by the time second edition rolled around, we made good on that promise by delivering an entire source book devoted to Sahuagin. Yep. It was called Sea Devils.
Oh, and that's where was it a longer source book or was it just...
It was one of the second edition soft cover books,
right.
Part of a series that focused on key monsters. The first one was the Alithiad, and then we did one for Beholders, and then we did one for Sahuagin.
I remember those.
Yeah, it's about a 100-page book, and so there was that particular book, and then there were a couple of adventures that supported it. And I think it was around the same time, but it might have been later, that there was a series of novels, Forgotten Realms novels, that were all related to that, right. Sahuagin attack and so on.
The Threat from the Sea novel series. Yes.
Now, did they have, before we go too far into those things, did they have a fairy tale or folklore background like many D&D monsters do?
I mean,
I would say that they're probably born out of Cthulhu mythos.
Okay.
They sort of have a Lovecraftian feel to them.
Right. They have the madness.
Strange creatures coming up out of the depths of the sea from some ancient, long-lost place.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they've always been sort of associated with savagery and sharks and stuff like that, more so than like weird Cthulhu stuff. So I think someone took the Cthulhu idea and then also just sort of like the what's the Monster from the Black Lagoon kind of thing, and just kind of put them together. And
so the first adventure that ever really showcased Sahuagin came out of the UK. It was module U3, The Final Enemy. It was the third and final part of a 3-part series called the Saltmarsh series, which began with The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, which was a haunted house pirate escapade, Scooby-Doo-like adventure, and then continued with a delve into a lizard folk den in the second adventure, Danger at Dunwater, and then concluded with you realizing that lizard folk weren't the real threat, that the disappearing folk and everything else going on in Saltmarsh was the cause of sea devils. And so you have to go to this Sahuagin stronghold and descend into this dungeon to fight them, and only then do you realize that a part of the stronghold is entirely underwater.
Oops.
And so it was D&D's first real foray into underwater adventuring.
Oh. So what year was that? Was that like mid-'80s?
That would have been early 80s.
Early 80s. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and had that been dealt with as far as the mechanics of...
No, they had to actually in the adventure include a bunch of rules to basically help you run the logistics of underwater combat in a Sahuagin stronghold.
Interesting. Was that the foundation for underwater mechanics for a while, or was that?
It served that adventure.
Yeah.
Back in those days, people came up with rules in isolated pockets, and so by the time second edition ended, I think there were probably 20 different rules for underwater combat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and second edition, we're talking to about how the other day about tree monsters and how there's like dozens and dozens of tree monsters. It's the same thing. The design kind of happened in isolation, and it kind of.
And people have the same kind of imagination kind of things to make it go. So
Yes.
so Sahuagin, they were the sea devils. We mentioned sharks. Are they half shark, half person? Is that
No, they've got an affinity for sharks.
Okay.
The way that some people have an affinity for dogs or cats.
Right.
And sharks are often encountered with them in a fighting force.
Yeah, sharks are kind of like their attack dogs. I think.
okay? So it's like goblins and wolves a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sahuagin, particularly with the advent of second edition, worship a deity called Sekolah, which always makes me think of Ricola.
But the exact opposite effect,
Yeah.
right? It makes your throat hurt.
But he's just sort of this weird giant shark deity of ultimate savagery and destruction and eating things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I see. And are they, chaotic evil, or are they lawful evil?
let's see. I think
How do they organize their
Double check.
societies?
Lawful evil, it says. So they're
They have priestesses.
yeah, and they have
And they have a settlement, if you can call it that, of Sahuagin, or a tribe of them, often has a leader who is a really big Sahuagin with 4 arms called a baron.
Oh.
yeah.
And the Sahuagin baron is considered to be just the toughest of the bunch, and so he rules by force of will, and everybody kowtows to him.
How did he get the extra set of arms?
It's interesting mutations.
Yeah, they're sort of prone to some mutation to some degree.
Yes.
They have
We should talk about Malenti.
Yeah, they have an unusual one, which is that if they're near sea elves, if their colonies near sea elves, they have the possibility of birthing what's called a Malenti, and that is basically a Sahuagin that looks like a sea elf.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
That's creepy.
It's random and weird.
Yeah.
It behaves in all respects like a Sahuagin. It's taken into the Sahuagin tribe as a Sahuagin, but it looks like a sea elf.
Huh.
yeah, and then they kind of can then use that Malenti as a spy or an assassin among the sea elves.
We should do an episode on sea elves too, because now I'm interested more about them. But all right, so their DNA is a bit mutable in some ways. Like they can
Yeah.
adapt quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, there is one short story, I think it is, from there's a series of various novels in the Forgotten Realms setting that were realms of whatever, realms of magic, realms of XYZ. And one of them was, I think, Realms of the Deep, and it was a short story that had essentially a posited an explanation that a dark elf who sought deityhood used magic to create the Sahuagin, and that's kind of why they have the elf affinity, and they were going after the dark elves, so for some reason didn't like the sea elves. I don't think that that's necessarily canonical by any means. That's just one explanation.
One
and
possibility.
Yeah.
Right. All right. But if you're going to set a D&D campaign in the sea or near the sea, Sahuagin and the sea elf, that conflict seems to be a great way to build it.
Sahuagin are sort of the aggressive bad guys of the sea. And they're highly organized and vicious and cruel, and you don't feel bad about killing them.
That's always good,
Yeah.
especially with a D&D monster.
Yep.
Do they have any weaknesses? Do they have something that they, go after? Like, it sounds like sea elves. They have this hatred of them. So
They don't like deserts.
they don't like dry land.
They don't tend to wander too far away from the water. So
Yeah.
there is that benefit. People in people far inland don't have to worry too much about Sahuagin attacks.
They are bipedal, though, right? So they can walk
yes,
on water, on
yes.
land.
They can walk around, yep. And let's see, was there a Sahuagin actually in the not Princes of the Apocalypse?
There was in
There
Out of the
was
Abyss, too.
in Princes of the Apocalypse, I believe. Yes, there was a Sahuagin. I remember in the original draft he was hiding in a bathtub. Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still there.
He's still in the same bathtub.
There's a stray Sahuagin wandering around in Princes of the Apocalypse.
That's cool.
But he's a little out of his element.
You could say so.
Yeah.
Miles from the sea.
Yeah.
Well, he's near a river. That's close to the sea.
Are there river
Saltwater.
Sahuagin? Are there?
No.
They're a
It's
saltwater dwelling species.
Yeah.
Okay. Important to note there. Do they go into the Underdark as well?
They could end up there, absolutely, if the Underdark connects to the sea in flooded underground lakes and
Yeah, I mean, Kuatoa kind of operate in that niche as far as like an aquatic species in the Underdark. They're crazier and weirder, but that's kind of the place that they already operate in. So you don't really need them down there.
no,
But
we don't need two kinds of fish folk.
Is there a disambiguation there? Like, is that the Kuatoa are the Underdark version of Sahuagin, or
They're not related.
They're not related at all.
No. So they just happen to both be bipedal, and they both happen to have fish-like qualities. But in sort of what we've established as the current canon, Kuatoa were humans that got twisted and maligned and enslaved and eventually adopted weird fishy traits.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
They were enslaved by, like many underground races, mind flayers.
Right.
And mind flayers do messed up things to their thralls.
very, very strange things.
But Sahuagin do not have that relationship with mind flayers.
No.
They are their own thing.
They're their own thing.
All right. Is there anything going on within the Forgotten Realms, especially beyond what we already mentioned? But as far as history of Sahuagin empires.
Funny you should mention that. So the sort of inland sea of the Forgotten Realms, the Sea of Fallen Stars. There's a source book about that sea and all of its undersea kingdoms, and it goes through literally thousands of years of history of various empires of Sahuagin and sea elves and so on and so forth. So if that's your jam, my goodness, we got you covered there. But the novels that we mentioned before, the Threat from the Sea novels series, sort of details and attacks of the Sahuagin on the Sword Coast, and particularly Waterdeep. And so they go there and they attack the city and it's about 100 years back or so. But there's a major sort of attack on Waterdeep, assault on Waterdeep at that point.
Yeah. The Sword Coast is prone to Sahuagin attacks.
And they're all along the coast, essentially.
Yeah, and in fact, if you go back and you look at some of the really old FR material, like the Ruins of Undermountain box set, there are references to Sahuagin ending up in Undermountain, presumably not willingly. But
as adventurers, like going down?
No, just finding their way down in there and
I
just
see.
kind of roaming around and actually kind of hanging out there. And there's like Sahuagin statues there and other things to hint that, hey, there's actually, Sahuagin connection. Not a major thing, just incidental.
I imagine Hallister just kind of occasionally floods a level of the dungeon for the hell of it.
It's like, who else is going to get in there except...
This needs a rinse. Oh, some Sahuagin came in. What the hell?
And they're just as bad, right? Yeah. So that begs a good question, though. Like, do they build? I mean, do they create cities or villages underneath the water? Do they build statues?
If they have an empire, they build something, generally.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine a lot of Sahuagin societies are kind of semi-nomadic.
I think there might be undersea caves that they've basically conquered and filled in, like with their hordes and masses, and used for shark pens and things like that. I don't think they build, skyscrapers or...
Right. I mean, they can use tools, and they know the value of weapons and stuff like that. But imagine forging things under the sea and also having them last very long once you got them under there is kind of weird. So a lot of the items that they take are probably taken from other creatures that know how to do that better.
In the final enemy, the adventure where you kind of first really get to fight them in D&D, they've basically taken a sunken island which had a bunch of caves and stuff, and expanded those caves with dungeon chambers. So it's very much a labyrinthine place that you're going into that they've obviously modified and sort of built out for their needs.
That makes sense. Right. So if you were a dungeon master and you were thinking about using Sahuagin, what's kind of like the tenets that you would use them
I mean,
for?
the most sort of common thing is you're in a coastal community and suddenly, you wake up the next morning or you wake up in the night to screams of people being dragged away into the depths, and you have to beat the Sahuagin back into the sea and maybe find out where they're coming from if you want to prevent further attacks. That's sort of the stock and trade use of them.
Yeah, another one would be, you're sailing someplace and like, whoa, Sahuagin, just climb aboard.
And you're suddenly repelling these borders and, again, throwing them back into the sea.
And I mean, they're probably just there to steal your swords.
Because they can't make them. They can't make them under the water.
Right. Fire is hard to make underwater.
That makes total sense. All right, so they're basically like Uber pirates, or like some kind of
they're a nasty, monstrous pirate raider, sea raider kind of force. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, their element is the water. I mean, they prefer to fight there. So, when they do attack you on the ship, expect to get thrown overboard. Right? Right. Expect there to be sharks when you get thrown overboard. Yeah. Like it doesn't end well.
Sharks in the water.
Yep.
Gonna need a bigger boat. And then as long as if someone's quoting, Richard Dreyfuss, you should be all set. All right, great. Well, thank you guys for that dive on dive into Sahuagin. You really helped me out there. If people want to ask you more lore questions, how could they get in touch with you, Mr. Perkins?
I'm on Twitter at Chris Perkins DND.
And I'm also on Twitter at Cernett, SERNETT.
Sweet. And you can ask us anything at wizards_DND or myself. I'm at Greg Tito. And we'll be coming up with more lore you should know segments pretty soon. Thanks a lot. Sweet. Great. Candlekeep is up next. We get to talk all about the Keep of Candles.
Yes.
I'm sorry about the puns, Monty Beth. I couldn't help it. I usually just say the deep dive in, and then I was like, I gotta go all in. All right.
What are you talking about?
Oh no! Please don't.
Oh my god, that had me a second where I was like, is that actually? No, yeah, you're right. That's okay. Welcome to another segment of Lore You Should Know, where me, Greg Tito, speaks to these fine gentlemen, Mr. Chris Perkins.
Hello.
And Matt Cernett.
Howdy.
And we are going to talk about a little bit of Dungeons & Dragons and Forgotten Realms lore that you can use in your game. And today's topic is Candlekeep.
Yeah.
Yes. Is it an island of Candlekeep, or is the castle of Candlekeep?
It's sort of a castle. It's out on a sort of
promontory.
Yeah, peninsula-ish of rock. I mean, it's way out, kind of out in the ocean.
It's on the sea.
So the Sword Coast is a big bunch of cliffs along most of it, and it's out way on a strip of land that goes way out into the sea, kind of, and so it's up on top of this bluff.
And it looks like a big ass fortress with lots of towers.
Yeah,
okay.
It's kind of the appearance is kind of funny because the appearance in our art in much of 4th edition and earlier. And then it was based upon the art that was done in Baldur's Gate, the video game, computer game. And that art just kind of painted it as a four-sided castle, very sort of Disney princess-looking place. And if you go into the actual descriptions of Candlekeep in products, it's a bit more complicated than that. And actually, I think it's a bit more interesting. There is a central tower and some gardens around it, which is what you see in the game. But there's also a host of other towers around that are all built up in crazy wackadoodle towers that have built up over time as these various scholars have come to sort of do their work. And
I'm a wizard, and I need my own tower.
I'm going to build it myself.
The library isn't necessarily a like place where you go in and like you go through some gates and there's some books in a library. It's scattered all over these towers with all of these scholars working in their own little cubicles and spaces and stuff, and all these various towers with bridges interlocking them and
so
stuff like that.
A little bit more haphazard, kind of grew naturally and organically.
Yeah, but it is first and foremost a library.
Yeah.
It is the foremost library in the Western Heartlands.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of the sort of greatest single collection of knowledge anywhere in the Forgotten Realms, and it has been doing this for quite a long time. The roll of years, the sort of how Forgotten Realms has the various names for the years.
Yeah.
So, like 1491 is the year of the Scarlet Witch, I think.
Yes.
Something like that. And there's lots of other names for the years, obviously. Those were all devised by Londo, and he did that work in Candlekeep, I don't know, like 1,000 years ago or something like that. And so it's been there a long time collecting lore. And one of the ways that it collects lore is that when you want entry to Candlekeep to consult with those scholars, you have to present a book that they don't have
in their collection.
So it might be that your book is unique because of what else has been written in it, or because you wrote it, or something like that. It doesn't have to be necessarily, a
new copy,
like
a new book that you've never seen
completely
before.
new thing. But
I believe the last time Elminster went there, he brought with him 50 Shades of Grey.
That is canon. That makes a lot of sense.
but that's how you get in, and so that's how they've been collecting lots of lore. And obviously they have their own scholars who are interested in various things. So whatever, maybe there's a scholar in there who's super interested in white dragons. Well, that scholar might go out and look for resources and bring them back, and that kind of thing.
Got it. Who founded Candlekeep? We don't know. It wasn't Elminster,
No. It doesn't have sort of a name founder, I don't think, in the lore, and it is it's not necessarily like a group that's it's not one deity that's organizing it either. Like it's Denir and Ogma and all of these deities are sort of related to knowledge and learning and all that kind of stuff, and are all represented there. But the organization itself is not necessarily a priest or a wizard or whatever. Many of them are priests and wizards, but they're all sort of part of this organization of scholars who guard Candlekeep, and it's just this long-running tradition of scholars who do this thing.
Who is what's the organization's name?
Well, they
Does it have a name?
I think they're just they have various names. So like
Call them the Keepers of Candlekeep.
Yeah,
sometimes.
there's an enormous amount of lore based on like the various levels of what you are as far as a scholar in there, and what robes you wear, and all this kind of stuff. And Ed Greenwood wrote up a document in 2004, which I don't think we've published anywhere, but it's sort of a guide to Candlekeep, and it runs through all of that stuff about basically who is the master of the green door and yada 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 and all these different things.
Oh, okay, cool. So Candlekeep was sprang from the mind of Ed Greenwood.
Oh, definitely.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
As probably a location that his home group went and needed to go to, and then it just
It is the
ballooned from
go-to
there.
place if you need information.
Yeah.
If you can get in, you can pretty much. It might take you some time, effort, and resourcefulness, but you can probably get your hands on pretty much anything you need once
Right.
there. Spell, scroll, otherwise. While Matt's looking up organizational stuff, I will mention that my first contact with Candlekeep came out of a Worms of the North article that was published in Dragon Magazine, where Ed Greenwood described a disembodied dragon whose spirit lingers in the deep archives of Candlekeep. This dragon, Miram, manifests as a pair of spectral dragon jaws and will speak to you in this form and trade information with you, but also serves as a vicious guardian if anybody tries to steal the books that it considers to be part of its collection.
Cool.
Yeah.
So two jaws, a pair of
Yeah,
jaws?
a pair of bone dragon jaws.
Oh, okay.
Just the bone.
Interesting.
And
then
nothing else of the dragon remains. So these talking bony jaws basically having words with you.
That's a
or
cool image.
floating after you, snapping at you if you try to run off with one of its books. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Miriam still got her breath weapon in the works, so that's also kind of a spooky feature of encountering this spectral apparition.
Right. But then, a fiery breath weapon amongst a bunch of books that are meant to be protected.
Yeah.
Matt, let's talk about fire in Candlekeep.
Oh.
Fire's not allowed. And
More importantly,
notes.
it simply doesn't work.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah. The wards on the place basically snuff a flame out.
Oh. So, like, if you try to cast fireball, just
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Bupkis.
Light a candle.
Nothing.
You
Nothing.
can't light a candle in Candlekeep.
You can't light a candle in Candlekeep. But magical lights that don't actually burn are fine.
So cast light on everything.
Yeah,
A light spell or
there's plenty of sort of like continual flame spells and stuff
Yeah.
like that illuminate various parts of Candlekeep.
without threatening to set the whole place ablaze.
Nice. That makes sense. So it sounds like each kind of head scholar has their own like little domain within Candlekeep, and then do they have underlings underneath them that do the work of cataloging all that? Is there a catalog?
All right, so
There's a lot here.
Yeah, so there's what's called the first reader, and so the technically I guess they're called the Avowed of Candlekeep. And they are led by the Keeper of Tomes, who sets the sort of policy of Candlekeep, and then the second in authority is the first reader, and then after the first reader, then there's the great readers, and then there's the offices of the chanter and the guide and the gate warden. So I mean, there's a whole sort of real bureaucracy and organization, very much in the sort of kind of in the form of like Benedictine monks or that kind of a thing.
And you have to understand that this all comes from the brain of a man who spent basically his life as a librarian. Ed Greenwood is a librarian by trade, so Candlekeep has always been sort of a way for him to reflect a version of a library that would exist in his world that he can relate to.
I wonder if there's like Michelangelo's, putting real people into his frescoes. If there are real librarians that Ed has immortalized.
That's a question you'll have to ask Ed.
That's kind of cool. So it does feel like a bit ad hoc, even though there is this bureaucracy that each person's collection has their own kind of organization to it. So that's why you mentioned that like it might take some time for you to actually find the thing that you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean they're like master readers and scribes, and so it keeps on going down. But I think that there would be, for lack of a better term, sort of like adjunct professors, right? So imagine you are really interested in white dragons, and you earn your way into Candlekeep by giving them some book that they don't have, and they have thousands of copies of and bits of lore and scraps of things about white dragons in their archives and various towers and so on and so forth. You might spend years there researching what you want to know about white dragons, and so you might not be officially part of the organization, and yet you're still a fixture in Candlekeep as someone who's an expert, someone that they can refer people who have questions to, and so on and so forth.
So there's people who are looking for their thing, but then they've already become the experts that other people are looking for their thing to help find.
I think a lot of what happens in Candlekeep are just cool interactions with some NPCs who might be just socially off their rocker. I mean, people who tend to hang out here probably aren't social butterflies. They want to be left alone. So if you come searching for a book and you go to where it's stored in the archives and you see there's just a blank spot there on the shelf, that probably means somebody else in Candlekeep has that book in their custody currently, and then you have to try to track down who has it. And if it's like the third book in their stack of books, they might not want to give it up to you.
Right.
Because they haven't gotten to it yet. So how are you going to finagle getting that book away from that wizard, which he isn't even reading right now anyway, but he doesn't want to relinquish into your custody for fear of not getting it back in due course.
Yeah.
And so suddenly you've got this little role-playing challenge going on, or you're trying to basically pilfer it without the wizard noticing and then slip it back before,
he even knows.
He's any the wiser.
Right.
And so, but then you also have to watch out for his pseudo-dragon companion who's keeping a watchful eye on you all the time, so you need an apple to bribe that thing and keep it busy. And so I see Candlekeep as a place where you can have myriad interactions with very interesting folks, the consequences of which could be dire if you fail.
It's a nice way to get information about your setting or the background of the thing without it being spoon-fed to the players, right? Like, here's you need this information about the MacGuffin or whatever you need to do for your adventure.
And then the information you get is not necessarily reliable. So you may have to consult multiple tomes and then extract from that what you believe to be the truth. Because, not every book you read is from a reliable narrator.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting too.
Yeah, and there's also lots of fun opportunities for you to find magical things in Candlekeep, because obviously they have a huge library of magical books and scrolls and spells and stuff like that. So there's that opportunity as well. If the characters want to kind of go there and find some new spell or something like that, they can go and do that.
Is there like a research arm of Candlekeep? Like, are there people who are trying to access new and different parts of magic?
I don't think there are necessarily any inventors per se.
So it's not like a...
Yeah.
Typically, once they've figured out the lore they need, to go off to wherever they actually came from and do their thing.
And then apply it practically.
Right. Without the prying eyes of all their peers.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there any magic items? Like, is it just scrolls and knowledge only, or is this like a repository for magic items?
I would say it's not really. I don't think it's been historically a repository for non-book, non-scroll magic items. But that being said, the beings who come here, no doubt, are loaded. Many of them with magical stuff. And also, there may be guardians in parts of the archives who also have magic items at their disposal to defend those archives.
So it might be, if you needed a specific kind of item, you might also be sent to Candlekeep to find it or pilfer it.
Like if I were a cruel DM, I might have the party need to contend with like a helmed horror that's got a gauntlet with a rotating arm of like 6 wands. And it's just like...
None of them fire.
Yeah, right.
None of them fire.
Or it would cause any destruction to books, but only to people's.
There's, I suspect, all kinds of odd things like that.
There's an idea that there are lots of sort of ghosts floating around in Candlekeep and spirits, and a lot of books have magical properties, even if they don't necessarily do sort of the things that the DMG do. So like a book, you might open it up and it might show you an illusion instead of an illustration,
or it might release a spine devil.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
Or it might read aloud in the voice of the person who wrote it or something like that. So there's lots of like interesting little magical fun things that could happen in Candlekeep. It's just sort of interesting color and interactions.
Got it. And we talked about the gods of knowledge that are there. So Agma is very much neutral, doesn't really make a judgment on good or evil. So is there a large number of necromantic tomes there, or evil things that would be tinging toward the evil side of things there as well?
I don't think they're biased toward books as, in any way, shape, or form. I think evil books are fine. They're just guarded so that no oaf can just run off with it or unleash something they weren't meant to, or, mess things up.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that those things are kept under some sort of protection and lock and key, but, individuals who have a reason to go, I mean, I don't think you can just go and read the Book of Vile Darkness for the fun.
Yeah, ideally the DM has set up a few impasses.
Along the way.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. All right.
But it's probably there.
It's there. Even, so the knowledge to do evil things is there. And so that might be another reason you're like racing to find the knowledge before an evil wizard is able to find it first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that.
And, it's really also just like knowledge about virtually anything. So one of the other gods that's worshipped there is Melil, which is sort of like a god of music and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I'd imagine that whatever the recordings of symphonies look like, or that kind of songs and songbooks and things like
poetry and
Yeah.
lyrics and
novels.
Is there a
newspapers
bardic college there as well? Like that would.
Nope.
No,
they don't teach you, but they have the books.
They have all the stuff for
Yeah.
it. All right.
Yeah.
So it's like the Library of Congress.
Yes.
But not the Juilliard. Got it.
Correct.
All right. I like
Yeah.
that. That makes sense to me. Cool. All right. Well, I feel like there's a lot of information there to unpack.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the great places of Faerun. Sort of, if you had to list maybe the top 10 list of places to see in Faerun before you die, Candlekeep would probably be on that list, which, begs the question, when are we going to get around to doing something with it? And that's something that we're looking at now.
Is there also information there on other planes?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you probably won't find any gateways there, so you have to go somewhere else.
But they know all about Athos and
Don't tell them about the gateways, Matt.
They know about Oerth there and realm space and all that.
because I mean they sort of guard who enters and they watch who leaves and what they take with them. So
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll find all about Kryn there.
you might also find like real world Earth books there.
Really?
You might.
Sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's 1984.
Absolutely.
Is there?
Wizards who have traveled to Earth have wound up in Candlekeep, and so you might see green eggs and ham on a shelf somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that canon? Is there like actual like Earth books that have been described as being there in Candlekeep?
Almost certainly.
Nice. I love that. I love that kind of meta stuff where it's like you're in, it's all part of the multiverse.
If if Elminster can visit Ed Greenwood in his kitchen in Canada, then Elminster can get green eggs and ham into Candlekeep.
He can sneak back a few issues of National Geographic or something like that.
Oh my God. That's awesome. All right. Well, if I ever run a campaign that's there in Candlekeep, that green eggs and ham is going to have to be on the shelf.
Playboy issue number 1.
Too soon. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for telling us all about Candlekeep. Where can people find out how to get a library card there by asking you on social media? Where's the best place to do that?
I'm on social media, specifically Twitter, at Chris Perkins DND.
Yeah, also on Twitter at Cernett, SERNETT.
Awesome. Thank you guys, and we'll be back with some more lore another time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ba-dum-bum. All right. We got 6 minutes, so we're probably just going to close it out here.
Any questions?
Do you guys have any questions here in the chat you want to throw at?
They don't even have to be Candlekeep related.
They can be any related.
Yeah.
They have Dr. Seuss Vampire Hunter.
Dr. Seuss Vampire.
That sounds like a great idea, Monty Beth. Love it. Where's the National Geographic owlbear issue?
Owlbears. There's probably like the recipes or sort of the procedures for making owlbears hidden away in Candlekeep somewhere, since they were a magical creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a recipe list.
Some crazy wizard made the first ones, and then, well, they sort of caught on.
Smash different DNA together.
Yep.
Is there any chance a demon is hanging out at Candlekeep? Or devil?
Oh, almost
Asked
assuredly.
Rasta Splash?
Almost assuredly. It's possible it could just be roaming around in some sort of disguise, or it's actually locked away somewhere in a book or in a room. Like maybe a book was brought to Candlekeep, they opened it, a demon popped out, and they're like, a demon! And then they contained it somewhere. So that demon's sort of locked in a closet with a big sign on it that says, "Do not enter."
Right. Demons beyond. Which, I mean, the curious of any video game immediately would open that up and let it go.
Dragon issue number 213 has the ecology of the owlbear in there.
Are half turtles a thing?
No.
No. That's a quick one.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, nope, 214. Oh, they moved it.
How do you pronounce a Sararak?
You just did.
Yep.
That's what you mean a tavern, just asked. We'll be talking to Joe Delabella in just a few minutes. I think that might be him. Hi, Joe. Is the Book of Vile Darkness ? That's all I got. Book of Vile Darkness ? You mentioned it's in Candlekeep.
It could be.
It could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the it's in the DMG, so you can I think, isn't it? Yeah. And so you can read about it there. It's not good. No.
Yeah. All the good and bad books that you can think of can probably be found there. There might even be one or two vacuous grimoires. If some of you are old school, you know what that means.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Or palimpsests.
Oh, my God.
Wait, what's a
palimpsests are just, they're paper monsters. They're basically, they're sheets of parchment that kill you.
Oh, my gosh. And they're named Pelimpests?
Yeah. So
Pelham. You got your own monster. Did you even know that?
It actually stems from a real world word. But pretty much, if there's any object that exists in the D&D world, there's a monstrous version of it that can kill you.
So like tables.
Living swords, living tables, living chests, living rugs, living tapestries, living walls, anything that you can interact with. Living locks. There's a monster that's a gold coin.
Really?
Looks like a little gold coin that sprouts little feet and walks around. It's called a lock lurker, is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's...
And then that will kill you.
And let's not dwell on the Zaver.
What's the Zaver?
So the Zaver is,
Why did I say that?
It looks kind of like a sword, and it's got kind of little tiny feet under the
its
hilt,
hilt.
and it kind of walks
So
around.
it walks point up and just sort of randomly stabs people. But the illustration that appeared in one of the editions basically made it look like a walking dildo.
Because of the way the ribbed. Yes.
Well, it was just this
yeah.
pokey sword with a lumpy base, and it was kind of dull.
No.
Not going to be okay.
Yeah.
So don't use Zavers in
Zavers should never be used.
Yeah.
Unless
they-
parental.
According to the ecology of the owlbear eggs are nearly perfect spheres. FYI.
I did not know that. Are owls' eggs like that? I wonder why that.
I have no idea.
I think, yeah. All right, we've got to learn more. All right, well, thank you guys for this. We always love throwing random questions at you, and we'll do more in another segment. So thanks, you guys. We'll be back. We're going to take a really short break. We're going to talk with Joe Dellabella from You Meet in a Tavern for the next thing, and then we're going to have Sage Advice with Jeremy Crawford at 4 p.m. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. Stick around.